I can't remember the figures. We had at least 500 cows and calves, and we would get up to like 5,000 head in the feedlot. So it was a constant problem, a constant worry, a constant labor problems. We experienced everything. During the first 15 years, we never put a crop in the bin. We had either flood or fire or hail or drought. And I began to think, this farming isn't what it's cut out to be. We grew up with hunters. We grew up seeing cows and calves and hogs. And they were fed and raised and went to slaughter, and they were eaten. That was just accepted. And it wasn't until I broadened my perspective, I traveled, I met other people, I saw other way of life, and I decided that isn't right. And because of health reasons is the reason I started to become a vegetarian, was health reasons. And after that, when I found out what was really going on then, it was more for the animals and for the environment that I'm a vegetarian.
1979, I ended up paralyzed from the waist down. First time in my life that I ever really stopped and took a look at what I was doing and what was happening to the farm. You can't imagine what a traumatic experience it is when you put your feet on the floor and you can't feel the floor. You'd give anything that you could to walk again. When the doctor said to me, he said, "You have a tumor on your spinal cord. If that tumor is on the inside of the cord, you have less than 1 chance in a million you'll ever walk again." All of a sudden, I was wondering, those things that were happening on my farm, were they connected with what happened to my brother? Were they connected with what was happening to my health? And that night, prior to the operation, a lot of things went through my mind. But it was not about why I became a farmer. What came to me was I the problem? Could I change what I was doing? Could I save all of this? Because I would probably never walk again. Was I man enough to deal from a wheelchair to try and save what I profess to love? And that night, prior to the operation, fully believing that I would never walk again, I committed myself that I would spend the rest of my life, whether I walked again or not, I'd spend the rest of my life trying to get all of this back to what it was when I was a kid, with birds and trees and living soil, that I had a responsibility to my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, my brother. Nobody was willing to walk away from the herd. Nobody else was willing to stand up and say, we are killing the thing we love the most. There was no doubt in my mind we were destroying what I love. I knew that it was not sustainable. Well, committed myself that whatever it would take, I would do.
Howard Lyman made the transition by exercising this quality of questioning assumptions, questioning the wisdom of his predecessors. And of course, his illness was what allowed him time to reflect on this.
We were now in an era in the late 70s, very early 80s, where money was drying up, agriculture prices were falling, and hundreds of farmers, thousands of farmers were being forced off of their land. Howard's vision was that the salvation of the family farm was to get away from the get big or get out mentality that had ruined so many people already, and to start more holistic agricultural practices, wean themselves from the massive amounts of chemicals that they're putting onto their products and shooting into their animals.
Howard believes that the family farm has been the basis for our country, our economy for years and years, and it still is. But that job is being taken away from the family farmer, and it's being put into large corporations and feedlots, and the family farmer is just pushed out of the picture.
And that second season to work for him, he was significantly different. The things that had been a crisis, you know, equipment breaking, things that stopped the production, the first year I was here weren't the same big deal the second year. He'd lost the temper. I think he'd made some decisions. He'd made the decision to run for Congress, which I think was a decision that, no matter whether it was a successful campaign or not, was a decision to leave the farm.
So it was a series of things that just ended up putting us in Washington, D.C. And it was just a step in our progression.
Metro Airways Flight 566, now boarding.
That's the first hotel I ever stayed in Washington, D.C. in about 1978.
Right.
Believe it or not, the rooms were $100 a piece. Coming from Montana, I almost had a heart attack. But if you stop and look at it, if you want to change public policy, which I'm committed to do, changing public policy is not going to happen in Washington, D.C. In my opinion, it's going to be out in the grassroots. So I spend 300 days a year on the road. Ask the question, who produced my food? What did they use on it? What's it doing to me, the environment, and the animals? I want you to think about this. Is it right? Is it right that we should end up with more cancer? Should it be right that we end up with less topsoil? Is it right that we end up with fewer trees? When are we as the American people going to stand up and say enough is enough? When in God's world are we going to wake up to the fact that we are absolutely destroying the planet, the planet, the planet, the planet?
My first experience with Howard was going to Senate office to Senate office to House office and trying to get a bill introduced and passed to stop the patenting of animals. And Howard was, I don't know how much prior experience he'd had lobbying in Washington, but he was an exceptional lobbyist. And we actually did get a bill